Hi, today we're going to learn about the scroll saw. The scroll saw is a relatively safe machine. It works kind of like a sewing machine with an up-down motion, and it cuts pretty slow. Alright? It's probably one of the slowest cutting saws that we have here in the shop. And the good thing about that is the chance of cutting your finger off is pretty slim, because it does cut slow enough that you should realize you're cutting yourself. On the other hand, because it cuts slow, you may tend to get bored with it, and you may burn your wood, or you may twist the blade and break it because you're trying to cut too fast. Alright? You need to remember that this is a slow cutting machine, and you need to let the saw do the work. Number one, never back out of a cut when the blade is moving. The blade is pretty fine, and they even make smaller blades than this. And if you pull backwards on that blade, there's a good chance that you're going to catch it, and you're going to bend it or twist it and break it. Alright? Again, this machine is only designed to have a forward pushing force on it, and that's what we need to do. Number two, use relief cuts to relieve stress on the blade when cutting arcs. In a moment I will show you what relief cuts are and how they do relieve the stress on the blade. Three, fingers should never be closer than 4 inches from the blade. Again, that same rule that all machines have, 4 inches from the cutting surface. Number four, holes should be drilled for internal cutting. What we can do there is, if we wanted to cut, say, a heart or our name out of the inside of this board, we would start by drilling a hole. We could then disconnect the blade, feed the blade through that hole, and reconnect it. In doing so would allow us to cut internal curves. Or internal cuts. We're not probably going to do that, but I just want to let you know that you do have that capability with this saw. Number five, never remove scrap when the blade is moving. Obviously, if the blade is moving, you don't want to be reaching in and around that cutting surface. This saw is used to cut tight curves. Okay? It is not used to square a board. It is not cutting straight lines. It is used to cut curves, and curves only. Number seven, if a blade breaks, tell me right away. Don't be afraid of me. If it breaks, things happen. I can usually change it within a couple of minutes and get it back up and running. It's more of a safety concern for you to walk away and leave this bent blade here, and the next person to turn it on, have it fling off. Alright? If you break it, well, let me know. I will probably ask you why it broke, but we'll fix it. Number eight, the pressure foot should always rest on the workpiece. This is probably the single most the biggest problem that I see with students using this saw, is they don't know how to correctly set the pressure foot. The pressure foot is the silver part of the saw, and it works as a guard, and it also works as a foot to hold down your board, much like on a sewing machine. Those of you that have used a sewing machine, it holds your fabric down. Alright, in order to adjust a pressure foot, you're going to loosen this lever, and that allows me to move this up and down. I'm going to place my board underneath the pressure foot and let it rest on the wood. I will then tighten this handle over here, and in doing so, it will put some tension on the pressure foot. The pressure foot now is pushing down on our board, keeping it tight against the table. If you do not have the pressure foot set correctly, what will happen is your board will start doing this when you're cutting, which we call chatter. Alright? You hear the chatter, you know that your pressure foot is set incorrectly, or you're cutting too tight of a curve. In whatever case, you should stop and fix the problem. Remember to cut at a slow, constant speed. This is a slow machine, and do not force the blade or it will break. And number 10, forcing or twisting the blade does cause it to break. A couple more adjustments on this machine. The first one is, you see this black funny little arm here. What this does is blow air out to take the sawdust off of your piece so you can follow the line. You can adjust that ahead of time. Do not adjust it while the blade is moving. The other adjustment that you have is the speed. Now, you can set the speed very slow, and we can be here next year still cutting. Or you can set it really fast and cut real fast. However, most of you are not real good at this saw yet, so I would suggest that you cut it around speed 10. Speed 10 gives you enough control, and it does cut, pretty fast so you can get your job done. If I want to cut relief cuts, again, relief cuts are short little cuts that relieve stress on the blade. You cut them about 1/4 of an inch apart. Now you might say, Mr. Jinsky, you're backing out of those cuts. And you just said on the first step here that you cannot back out of a cut. Well, that is correct. However, a relief cut is a very short, straight cut. What I'm concerned about is if you have a long, curvy cut in here, that you're going to be backing it up. It's kind of like backing out of your driveway. Most people can handle backing out of their driveway. Most parents, that is. You shouldn't be driving yet. But most parents can handle backing out of their driveway. It's a short, straight backup. But how many people do you see backing down the street? Not too many, right? It's a lot more difficult to back down the street. Relief cuts are kind of the same thing. They're short, and they're relatively easy. You shouldn't hook the blade, all right? Now that I have the relief cuts, which are these short little cuts here, I'm going to cut my curve, or my arc. There is a slight delay when you turn the switch on before it'll start working. As I cut through my arc here, the little pieces of wood are breaking off, relieving the stress on the blade. As you can see, I made this nice tight little curve. Alright? Doesn't look too great right now. However, it's a starting point. The next step then would be to go to a spindle sander or hand sand and get out all those little grooves and necks. Okay?